On the day I was discharged, in front of the entire online media, the project team and all our friends and family, I returned the engagement ring Shen Yu had given me, along with everything else he had given me. He publicly demanded to know whether I was breaking off the engagement just because he had spent one night in a hotel with Su Luoluo. I answered with a single word, yes. He sneered that I would regret it, not knowing the first-floor lobby of the City Central Hospital inpatient building was packed to the brim. Cameras were shoved in my face and the flashes kept going off. I sat in a wheelchair, my leg still in a cast, my rib injury aching with every movement. My retained lawyer stood beside me, holding a silver tray. Shen Yu stood opposite me in a bespoke suit, his hair immaculately combed, the entire executive team of Shengting Group trailing behind him, along with both sides' friends and family, and the client representatives from Jianghai Cultural and Arts Center, all standing nearby. He looked at me, brow furrowed, his tone impatient and tinged with an assumed sense of control. Lin Zhon, have you had enough of this? I'll pick you up from the hospital, come home with me. I didn't speak, I raised my hand. The lawyer handed me the tray. I took the 3-carat engagement ring from my bag and placed it in the center of the tray, then the keys to the Riverview villa he'd given me, the Maybach car key, the supplementary black card, everything he had given me, not a single item omitted, all neatly arranged on the tray. I looked up and stared him in the eye. Shen Yu, our engagement is terminated. The hall fell instantly into a deathly silence. The flashes grew fiercer and the shutters clicked in a continuous roar. Shen Yu's face darkened in an instant. He stepped forward and lowered his voice so only the two of us could hear. Lin Zhon, don't be shameless. Now that you're making a scene like this, what are you trying to do? I ignored him and lifted my hand again. The lawyer stepped forward and handed the tray to Shen Yu. Shen Yu's gaze swept over the items on the tray and then returned to my face. He suddenly smiled, with a trace of mockery and an ingrained arrogance. His voice rose sharply so everyone present could hear clearly. Just because I spent a night at a hotel with Luoluo, you want to call off the engagement? I looked him in the eye and spoke each word distinctly with absolute clarity and not a hint of hesitation. Yes. He gave a light laugh, leaned forward slightly, and his tone was full of confident certainty, as if I were a petulant child who would sooner or later crawl back on my knees to beg him. You'll regret this. I smiled too, looking at him. My voice was low but loud enough for those nearby to hear. Shen Yu, the one who will regret it will be you. When I finished speaking, I raised my hand again. The lawyer immediately took 2 documents from his briefcase. One was a public statement rescinding the engagement, the other was the exclusive cooperation agreement for the Jianghai project's acoustic design that I had signed with Shengting Group. I picked up a pen and signed my name at the signature line on both documents. After signing, I picked up the cooperation agreement and tossed it at Shen Yu's feet. Shen Yu's face went completely ashen. He stared at me, the warmth in his eyes dropping to freezing point. Lin Zhon, think it through. Without Shengting Group backing you, who in the industry would dare to hire you? You think your so-called talent, without my resources, is worth anything? I didn't reply, I just looked at him calmly. I'm putting this on record today. Shen Yu's voice swept across the room, carrying an unquestionable pressure. The entire cultural tourism industry, the whole acoustic engineering circle, whoever dares to take Lin Zhon's projects, whoever dares to use Lin Zhon is opposing Shengting Group. I want to see who would give you that face. Everyone around fell silent. The project representatives who had intended to come over and greet me all stepped back, lowered their heads and dared not look at me. I smiled slightly, turned my wheelchair and faced away. Let's go. My assistant Xiao Chen pushed the wheelchair. The lawyer walked beside me, and we threaded through the crowd toward the hospital entrance. The flashes behind us kept popping, and Shen Yu's gaze was like a blade quenched in ice, stabbing hard into my back. I didn't look back. I sat into the car, the door closed, cutting off all the outside noise. Xiao Chen looked at me, his eyes red. Ms. Lin, what do we do next? Shen Yu is trying to blackball you from the whole industry. Everyone in our circle knows about Shengting's power, no one dares to cross him. I took out my phone, opened the photo album, and let my finger scroll over the surveillance screenshots and the chat logs between Shen Yu and Su Luoluo. We'll do whatever needs to be done. I put the phone into my bag and looked up at Xiao Chen. Go back to the studio, notify everyone, full staff meeting at 2 in the afternoon. Xiao Chen nodded and immediately took out his phone to start sending messages. The car drove on toward the standalone design workshop in the old district. Shin Yu, do you think I broke off the engagement just because you slept with Su Luoluo for one night? You're way too naive. You sheltered your white moonlight, helped her cover up those filthy deeds, and even pushed me into hell. You should have expected today's outcome. You say I'll regret it. Just wait, I'll make you understand what true regret means. My design studio is in a sycamore lane in the old town, a standalone 3-story building. The first floor is the reception area and an acoustics lab, the second floor is the office area, and the third floor is my private office. The car stopped at the door and Xiao Chen pushed me inside. As soon as we entered the first-floor lobby, the receptionist girl ran over with red eyes. Director Lin, you're finally back. Since this morning our phones haven't stopped all cancellations. I raised my hand to signal her not to panic. Take me to the second-floor conference room. I entered the conference room. A dozen or so people from the team were all seated inside, faces ashen. When they saw me come in, they all stood up, heads bowed, saying nothing. I sat in the head chair and looked at them. Sit down. Everyone sat. No one spoke. The room was so quiet you could hear breathing. Zhong Kai, the design department lead, was the first to speak, his voice trembling. Ms. Lin, right now the 3 projects we had on hand. They're all dead. This morning as soon as work started, the clients sent termination notices. They're even willing to pay the penalties. They just won't work with us. The other 2 projects we thought were settled were cancelled outright. They won't even answer our calls. I nodded and said nothing. Finance Director Lee placed a report in front of me, her voice choked. Ms. Lin, our liquid funds can only last 3 months. If no new projects come in, we won't be able to pay salaries. Xiao Chen put his phone in front of me. The screen showed the Weibo trending list. #Lin Zhon broken engagement, #Lin Zhon design plagiarism, #Lin Zhon ruthless for power. All 3 were at the top of the trends, followed by a glaring, explosive. I opened the first thread. It was full of videos of me breaking the engagement at the hospital earlier today. Those gossip accounts were setting the tone, calling me ungrateful, taking Shin Yu's resources and still having the nerve to break the engagement, labeling me an ungrateful woman. The second thread was nastier. It posted some of my early design drafts next to another designer's work, fabricating that my breakthrough piece was copied from someone else, and claiming that all my later national-level projects were bought with Shin Yu's money, that I had no real talent and was just a trophy who advanced by leaning on a man. The third thread was even more absurd. It accused me of bribing clients to win projects and even spread lies about my private life being promiscuous, alleging improper relationships with multiple clients. The comments section was full of insults. Turns out she's a plagiarist. I actually thought she was impressive. Disgusting. She takes Mr. Shin's resources and dares to snub him, thinks she's somebody. Without Shin Yu she's nothing. Watch, within a month she'll be crawling back to beg Mr. Shin's forgiveness. I swiped twice and tossed the phone back onto the table. At that moment my phone rang, an unfamiliar landline. I answered and put it on speaker. On the other end was Ju Ming, Shin Yu's assistant, his voice dripping with undisguised mockery. Ms. Lin, hope you're doing well. Must be rough right now, Mr. Shin says as long as you come back now and apologize to him in person, hand over the complete design plan for the Jiangkai project, Mr. Shin can be magnanimous and forgive your stunt this time. The blackout order we mentioned before can be withdrawn, otherwise your little studio won't last long. I leaned back in my chair, my tone calm. Tell Shin Yu he's not worthy of an apology if he wants my design plan. Tell him to wait until the next life. I hung up and blacklisted the number. Everyone in the meeting room stared at me, their looks full of despair. Zhong Kai bit his lip and spoke. Ms. Lin, maybe we should swallow our pride. Shin Yu's influence is too great, we can't beat him. So many of us rely on this work to eat. Yes, Ms. Lin, Lee added. We're truly trapped. No one in the industry dares hire us now, and the online smear has ruined our reputation. If this goes on, we'll really go under. I looked at them without speaking, then reached up and opened the safe in front of me. In the box were 3 red patent certificates, a thick stack of national project acceptance reports, and all the acoustic research results I had accumulated over the years. I pushed the patent certificates to the middle of the table. Lin Zhon, was never able to secure a foothold in this industry because of Shin Yu's connections. It's always been because of these things in my hands. I looked up and scanned everyone present. Shin Yu wants to blacklist me. He isn't capable of that in this industry. What ultimately matters is strength. not who has the bigger faction. I picked up a document from the table and placed it in front of the group. This is my latest full-space zero-defect acoustic system. The technology is a whole generation ahead of what's commonly used in the industry now. With this, we won't have trouble finding partners. As for the online smears, I took out my phone and handed it to the lawyer, Lawyer Wang. Please handle this, send cease and desist letters to all the rumor-spreading marketing accounts, file lawsuits, demand public apologies and compensation for reputational damages. Lawyer Wang took the phone and nodded. Don't worry, President Lin, I'll take care of it right away. I looked at everyone present. Now, those who are willing to stay and work with me, you're welcome. Those who want to leave, I won't stop you. You will get every cent of your wages and breach of contract pay. I'll give you half an hour to decide. Meeting adjourned. Everyone kept their heads down. No one spoke or moved. Half an hour later, the meeting resumed. Not a single one of the 15 people on the team had left. Zhong Kai looked at me with determined eyes. President Lin, we're with you. We trust your ability. Shun Yu won't be able to blacklist us that easily. Everyone nodded and shouted in unison. Yes, we're with you. I looked at them and nodded. Good, from today on, we go head to head with Shengtin Group and Shun Yu. Just then my phone rang, an unfamiliar number from a neighboring city. I answered. On the other end was a woman's voice, coquettish and exultant, full of the swagger of a winner. Sister Lin Zhon, it's Luo Luo. Do you have time? Let's meet. I have some things I want to talk to you about. It was Su Luo Luo. I smiled and said, all right, you pick the time and place. Tonight at 7, Yunding Clubhouse, private room 888. I'll be waiting. Sister Lin Zhon. After hanging up, I tossed my phone onto the table. Everyone stared at me, nervous. President Lin, you can't go. Su Luo Luo clearly has bad intentions. This is a trap. I leaned back in my chair and tapped the table with my fingers. A trap. I happen to want to meet her. Let's see what she can do. That made Shun Yu fall for her so completely, even covering up murder and arson for her. Lawyer Wang looked at me and said, President Lin, I'll go with you. No need. I shook my head. I'll go by myself. Don't worry, I won't be in danger. Shun Yu, Su Luo Luo, what you owe me I will take back bit by bit, principal plus interest, all of it. Tonight I'll start by collecting some interest. 7 p.m. at the Yunding Clubhouse, private room 888. When I pushed the door open, Su Luo Luo was sitting in the main seat, holding a glass of red wine, wearing a bespoke evening gown, a limited edition diamond necklace from Shun Yu around her neck that glittered harshly. 2 bodyguards stood beside her, and 2 influencer-looking girls were seated in the room, obviously brought in to bolster her presence. Seeing me enter, Su Luo Luo raised her eyes but didn't stand up. She didn't move a muscle, assuming the posture of the hostess. Sister Lin Zhon, you finally made it. Have a seat. I didn't sit. I stood where I was and looked at her. She smiled, waved her hand, and the 2 influencer girls and the bodyguard all stepped back and closed the private room door. Only the 2 of us were left in the room. She lifted her glass of red wine, took a sip, and looked at me with a tone full of boastfulness. Sister Lin Zhon, do you especially hate me? Hate me for stealing Shun Yu? I said nothing and watched her. She set down her glass, leaned forward a little, looked at me and smiled even more smugly. Actually, I didn't originally plan to force you to break off the engagement so quickly. After all, you still have views. You can help Shun Yu get the Jiangkai project, but I didn't expect you to be so clueless. Shun Yu already told you I'm just his sister, and you still won't let it go, so I have no choice but to be ruthless. I finally spoke, my tone calm. That night at the hotel, you deliberately had the paparazzi take the photos. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Su Luo Luo smiled even more happily and nodded, showing no shame. Yes, it was deliberate. I wanted the whole internet to know that Shun Yu was with me that night. I wanted everyone to know that I'm the most important person by his side. I wanted to force you to break the engagement. So what? She leaned back in the chair, looking at me with nothing but mockery in her eyes. Sister Lin Zhon, you don't really think Shun Yu loves you, do you? You're too naive. He's with you, engaged to you, only because he values the designs you have and that you can help him win the Jiangkai project. Once he gets the project, you'll be useless. Sooner or later he'll break up with you. She picked up a jewelry box from the table, opened it, and inside was a massive pigeon egg diamond ring, a full size larger than the one Shun Yu gave me. Look, Shun Yu just bought this for me yesterday. He said that once the project is secured, he'll propose. In his heart there's only me. I looked at her and said nothing. Seeing I didn't react, the smile on her face faded and her tone sharpened. Do you think your little design talent is something special? Shin Yu said that without him standing behind you, giving you resources, you wouldn't even be able to touch the door of a national-level project. Now that he's blacklisted you and the whole industry won't hire you, let's see how arrogant you still are. She lifted her wineglass, walked up to me, circled me once, her tone full of malice. Oh right, forgot to tell you, the day you had your accident, the scaffold collapsed and you were seriously injured, almost killed. That actually had something to do with me. My fingertips moved slightly, seeing my reaction. She smiled even more triumphantly, leaned toward my ear, and lowered her voice. That day I went to the project site, seeing you weren't there, I casually loosened a few screws on the scaffolding. I only meant to make you trip and get a little hurt. I didn't expect the whole structure to collapse. But it's fine, Shin Yu will cover for me. He's already destroyed all the evidence, labeled the accident as an accident, and no one will know I did it. She took a step back, looking at me with brazen confidence. Sister Lin Zhan, you can't beat me. Shin Yu will protect me for life. No matter what I do, he'll forgive me and help me fix it. What about you? You have nothing left now. What can you use to fight me? I watched her and finally smiled. Finished talking. She froze for a moment and looked at me. What do you mean? I raised my hand and shook the phone. In it on the screen, the recording interface was clearly visible. I recorded everything you just said, including your admission that you deliberately loosened the screws on the scaffolding, causing the accident that nearly cost me my life, and your admission that the incident at the hotel was something you planned on purpose. Su Luoluo's face went pale in an instant. She lunged at me, trying to grab my phone. Give me the phone, Lin Zhan, give me the phone. How dare you record? I stepped aside. She missed and fell onto the sofa. She raised her head, her eyes red, looking frantic. She grabbed the wine glass on the table and hurled it at me. The red wine drenched me, soaking my coat. I stared at her without a word, picked up the unopened bottle on the table, twisted off the cap, walked over to her, and poured the whole bottle over her head. The wine ran down her hair, soaked her evening dress, ruined her delicate makeup, leaving her in a sorry state. She screamed and looked at me with nothing but venom in her eyes. Lin Zhan, how dare you treat me like this? I'll tell Shin Yu. I'll make him have you killed. I tossed the empty bottle onto the table and looked at her, my tone icy. Go tell him. Let him hear for himself what the white moonlight he's protected for over a decade really is. Let him know that the person he's desperately covered for nearly killed my murderer. I turned and walked toward the private room door. I stopped at the doorway, looked back at her once. Su Luoluo, what you owe me, I'll collect bit by bit, down to the last cent. You and Shin Yu won't get away. Saying that, I pushed the door open and left. I got into the car. Xiao Chen trembled with anger at the sight of the wine all over me. Director Lin, that Su Luoluo went too far. Let's hand the recording to the police now. Put her in jail. I shook my head and made several backups of the recording, sending copies to lawyer Wang and a few people I trusted. It's not time yet. I leaned back in the seat and looked at the city lights outside the window. This recording was only the beginning. What I wanted wasn't just for Su Luoluo to go to jail. I wanted Shin Yu and her to be ruined together, to pay the price they deserved. I wanted Shin Yu to see how ridiculous his warning "you will regret it" really was. My phone rang. It was lawyer Wang. I answered. Director Lin, we've traced the online smear campaign to its source, the Shengting Group's PR team paid for those planted articles. Also, I found that the rumor accusing your breakout work of plagiarism was orchestrated by Su Luoluo and Shin Yu's assistant. That designer back then took their money and deliberately spread the lie. I gripped the phone, my fingertips tightening slightly. Of course, from the very start they'd been plotting against me. Understood, lawyer Wang, please help me look into Su Luoluo's ear injury back then, all hospital records and the treating doctors from that time. The more detailed the better. Okay, Director Lin, I'll start checking now. After hanging up, I stared out the car window. Shin Yu, you protected Su Luoluo for over a decade because she hurt her ear, saving you back then. Right, what if I told you that incident was a setup from the beginning? Would you collapse? I'm waiting for that day. Early the next morning, just after I arrived at the studio, lawyer Wang called. Director Lin, the police station still refuses to file a case. They say our recording is only a solitary piece of evidence with no corroboration, and the accident was already classified as an accident by the Safety Supervision Bureau, so they can't reopen the investigation. I asked around. Shengting Group made some calls, and officials at the Municipal Bureau pressured the district police. I leaned back in my office chair, my tone calm. I understand, it's fine if they won't file a case, we'll gather the evidence ourselves. After hanging up, Jong Kai knocked and came in holding a file. His face dark. Manager Lin, the bids for the 3 projects we submitted were all invalidated. The client says our qualifications don't meet requirements, actually they're just afraid to offend Sheng Ting Group also. The acoustic material suppliers we used to work with have all sent notices saying they won't supply us anymore, even if we pay in full they won't do business with us. I nodded, saying nothing. Shenyu's blacklist had been executed thoroughly, the whole industry from top to bottom dared not offend him, no one dared give me a chance. Jong Kai looked at me, sweat pouring from his forehead. Manager Lin, what do we do now? If this continues, we really won't have any way out. I raised my eyes and looked at him. Do you know Huajian Group? Jong Kai paused, then nodded. Yes, of course, one of the country's top private infrastructure groups. And this Jianghai project is Sheng Ting Group's biggest competitor. Why, Manager Lin? I picked up a file from the desk and handed it to Jong Kai. This is mine, a sound system optimization plan for the Jianghai project. Compared to the version I gave Shenyu before, performance is improved by 40% and costs are reduced by 15%. Condense this into a brief version and send it to me. Jong Kai's eyes lit up. Manager Lin, you mean you want to join Huajian Group? Not join. I shook my head. Cooperate, I'll help Huajian win the Jianghai project. Huajian gives me a platform so I can confront Shenyu head-on. Jong Kai immediately brightened and nodded. Okay, Manager Lin, I'll get on it right away. After Jong Kai left, I picked up my phone and scrolled to a number. It was Jiang Yi, the president of Huajian Group. I'd met him once before at an industry summit. He's someone who judges by ability, not by power, also the only person in the industry bold enough to openly oppose Sheng Ting Group. I took a deep breath and dialed. The phone rang 3 times and was answered. On the other end was a deep, steady male voice. Hello, who is this? President Jiang. Hello, I'm Lin Zhon. There was a 2-second pause on the other end. He hadn't expected my call. Designer Lin, I've heard of you. May I ask what this is regarding? President Jiang, I know Huajian Group is bidding for the Jianghai Cultural and Arts Center project. I have a complete acoustic system design tailored for this project. Its performance far exceeds current industry standards. I'd like to join Huajian's bid team as chief acoustic designer and help Huajian secure the project. Would President Jiang be interested in meeting to discuss in detail? There was silence for several seconds. Designer Lin, you should know your situation with Shenyu is public online. Shenyu has said whoever employs you is opposing Sheng Ting Group. Aren't you afraid I won't take on this hot potato? I smiled slightly and said, if President Jiang were afraid of offending Shenyu, you wouldn't have competed with Sheng Ting for the Jianghai project in the first place. Besides, you should understand the core barrier of the Jianghai project is the acoustic system design in the whole country. I'm the only one who can achieve 0 acoustic defects. What I offer Huajian is an absolute technical advantage, a guaranteed way to win the project. This deal is a sure win for you, President Jiang. A light laugh came over the line. Designer Lin is confident. Very well, let's meet. Today at 3 in the afternoon, Huajian Group headquarters, top floor conference room. I'll have my team there. Come and present your plan in person. All right, thank you, President Jiang. I'll be there at 3. On the dot. After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. This was my only chance, and the key to breaking the deadlock. At 2:30 p.m., I went to the Huajian Group headquarters with Xiao Chen and Jong Kai. The receptionist checked our appointment and took us up to the top floor conference room. When we pushed the door open, a dozen or so people were seated inside, all senior executives of Huajian Group, along with the leader of the bidding team for the Jianghai project. In the head seat sat a man in a black suit, steady in bearing and sharp-eyed. Jiang Yi. Seeing us enter, Jiang Yi raised his hand. Designer Lin, please sit. I took the seat opposite them, and Xiao Chen connected my laptop to the projector. Jiang Yi looked at me and got straight to the point. Designer Lin, let's not beat around the bush. We all know you've been blacklisted across the industry by Sheng Ting Group. Hiring you would be a direct confrontation with Sheng Ting. Besides, the internet is full of dirt on you saying your designs are plagiarized and that you have no real skill. Give us one reason why we should take such a big risk and hire you. No sooner had he finished than one of the executives beside him spoke up, his tone skeptical. Yeah, Designer Lin, We all know you used to be Shinting Group's exclusive designer and worked on many proposals for Shinyu for years. Now you've fallen out with Shinyu and come to work with us. How do we know you're not an undercover planted by Shinyu? How do we know the designs you give us aren't the discardings he'd already seen? Another executive nodded in agreement. Also, even if the online dirt might be slander, if something goes wrong and it affects our bid, who will be responsible? We can't ignore Shinyu's influence. All eyes fell on me, full of suspicion and scrutiny. I looked at them calmly, without a hint of panic. First, Shinyu and I have completely broken off. I'm standing here today to take him on head-on. I wouldn't be his mole and ruin my own livelihood. Second, the proposal I'm giving you is entirely new. Compared to the version I gave Shinyu earlier, performance is improved by 40% and cost is reduced by 15%. It is backed by complete patented technology. I can sign a non-disclosure agreement and will bear all legal responsibility if the plan is leaked. Third, the online smears are deliberate fabrications by Shinting Group's PR team. I've already instructed lawyers to file suit and will have results soon. If my personal reputation harms the bidding, I'm willing to accept all losses. I raised my hand and Xiao Chen turned on the projector. The first page of the proposal I had prepared appeared on the screen. Now I'll explain in detail this full-space zero-defect acoustic system for the Jianghai project. For the next hour I spoke without notes, explaining every detail of the plan, from constructing the acoustic model to precise control of reverberation time, from solving sound focusing issues to eliminating low-frequency resonance. Every datum, every technical detail I made crystal clear. I also performed an on-site acoustic simulation, comparing the industry-standard approach, the version I previously gave Shinyu, and this new plan. The differences in performance were obvious. The new plan's metrics overwhelmingly surpassed the others. In the conference room, the executives who had begun skeptical sat up straighter. Their doubt gradually turned to shock and finally to admiration. When I finished, I closed the presentation and looked around at everyone present. My proposal is finished. If anyone has questions, you may ask now. The room was quiet for a few seconds before Jiang Yi was the first to applaud. Immediately the whole room joined in, the applause booming. Jiang Yi looked at me with appreciation in his eyes. Designer Lin, your proposal is outstanding. I've been doing infrastructure for so many years and I've never seen such a perfect acoustic design proposal. He paused, looked at me and spoke each word. I now officially announce the appointment of Designer Lin Zhon as the Chief Acoustic Designer for Huajian Group's Jianghai Cultural and Art Center project. Fully responsible for the project's acoustic system design, granted the highest authority, the team will be personally assembled by Designer Lin, and the salary will be calculated at 3 times the industry's highest standard. The whole room erupted. Everyone looked at me with congratulatory expressions. I looked at Jiang Yi and nodded. Thank you for your trust, President Jiang. I will not let you down and will help Huajian win this project. Jiang Yi smiled and extended his hand. Pleasure working with you, Director Lin. I reached out and shook his hand. Pleasure working with you, President Jiang. After leaving Huajian Group and getting into the car, Xiao Chen and Zhong Kai were so excited they nearly jumped. Director Lin, we made it. We really made it. We don't have to fear Shinyu's blacklisting anymore. I stared out the window and couldn't help but smile. Shinyu, you think that by blacklisting me I've been driven into a corner? You're naive. In this industry, what ultimately matters is always ability. You can blacklist my resources, but you cannot blacklist my talent. From today on, I will be your strongest rival. We'll see at the Jianghai project's bidding. Just then my phone rang, an unknown number. I answered. On the other end was Shinyu's voice, icy and raging. Lin Zhon, you really have guts. You dare to side with Huajian and oppose me. I guess you really don't want to live. I smiled and replied, Shinyu, the game is only just beginning. Just wait, I'll make you suffer a crushing defeat. I ended the call and tossed my phone aside. Shinyu, bring it on, I'm ready. A week later, the pre-qualification review for the Jianghai Cultural and Art Center project's bidding took place in the bidding hall of the Municipal Public Resources Trading Center. All bidders had to submit preliminary designs and pass the pre-qualification to enter the final bidding stage. The bidding hall was packed with people, teams from all bidders, review experts, the client's representatives, and media reporters. It was absolutely crowded. I sat at Huajian team's table. Beside me were Jiang Yi and the entire bidding team. Opposite us was the Shenting Group team. Shenyu sat in the chief seat, dressed in a black suit, his face sullen, his gaze like a blade, staring at me. I ignored him and looked down. Flipping through the documents in my hand, the pre-qualification review officially began. The host, following the draw order, introduced each bidder's preliminary scheme in turn. The first to take the stage was Shenting Group. Zhu Ming, Shenyu's special assistant, held the microphone on stage and explained Shengting's preliminary plan. The PPT was flashy and his speech extravagant. He emphasized the strength of the Shengting Group and its experience operating cultural and tourism projects. While the acoustic design portion was glossed over, the reviewing experts in the audience nodded one by one, occasionally jotting things down in their notebooks. When Zhu Ming finished, he bowed to the audience. "That concludes my presentation. Thank you, experts." Applause broke out from the audience, and one reviewer spoke first, his tone admiring. Shengting Group's proposal is very comprehensive overall, and their operational thinking is clear. As a leading company in the industry, their strength is indeed impressive. Another expert nodded in agreement. Yes, overall, Shengting's proposal is the most mature among all the bidders so far. Shenyu sat in the audience with a smug smile at the corner of his mouth. He glanced at me with derision, as if to say, "See, even if you joined Huajian, it's useless. I'm the one who will win in the end." At that moment, I raised my hand. All eyes in the hall instantly turned to me. The host looked at me and spoke. "Representative, do you have a question?" I stood up, took the microphone, and spoke clearly so my voice carried across the entire bid-opening hall. "Esteemed reviewers and the client representative, hello, I am Lin Zhon, the chief acoustic designer for Huajian Group's Jiangkai project in the preliminary proposal presented by Shengting Group. The acoustic design section contains 3 fatal flaws that would directly cause severe acoustic incidents once the venue is built, rendering it unusable. I believe this proposal does not meet the bidding requirements for this project and should be judged as disqualified." The moment my words fell, the entire room erupted. Everyone exploded into chatter, whispering and debating. Shenyu's face went deathly pale. He sprang to his feet, glaring at me with nothing but fury in his eyes. "Lin Zhon, what nonsense are you talking? Our plan was repeatedly verified by a professional team. How could it have fatal flaws? You're deliberately stirring trouble, maliciously smearing Shengting Group." I looked at him, my tone calm. "Mr. Shen, whether it's nonsense or not, let the data speak. Experts, I will now explain in detail the 3 fatal flaws in Shengting's plan." I raised my hand, and Xiao Chen immediately connected my laptop to the venue's projector. The screen displayed the acoustic design drawings from Shengting's plan. Holding the microphone, I pointed to the first spot on the diagram and began. "The first fatal flaw, reverberation time, is severely out of control. The tender documents for this project clearly require the mid-frequency full-room reverberation time for a large theater to be controlled within 1/5 ±01 seconds. In Shengting's plan, acoustic simulation calculations show a mid-frequency reverberation time of 2-3 seconds, well above the national standard. What will this cause?" The audience in the stands heard only echoes. They couldn't make out what the performers on stage were saying or singing. The entire venue was completely unsuitable for performances. I paused, switched to the next slide, which displayed detailed acoustic simulation data and a comparison with national standards. Everything was clear at a glance. The judges in the audience each furrowed their brows, picked up the proposals in their hands, and examined them carefully, nodding from time to time. Shenyu's face grew even paler. He stared at me fixedly, unable to utter a word. I continued speaking, pointing to the second spot on the drawings. "The second fatal flaw is a serious sound focusing problem. In Shengting's plan, the venue's dome is designed with a curved surface, but there is no acoustic diffusion treatment. This causes sound, after reflecting off the dome, to focus on specific areas of the seating. The sound pressure level in those areas will be more than 15 decibels higher than elsewhere. In other words, audience members seated in those zones will have their ears pounded, while people in other areas won't be able to hear clearly. This is the most basic error in acoustic design, and the most fatal." I switched the slide again. It showed a simulation of the sound focusing effect, with the red focal zones clearly visible. The experts below erupted instantly, pointing at Shengting's plan and voicing their displeasure. How could they make such a basic mistake? This is so unprofessional. Yeah, if this gets built, The whole venue will be ruined. I looked at Shun Yu, his body had begun to tremble, and the pride in his eyes had long since turned to panic. I continued, my voice still calm. The third fatal flaw is that the low-frequency resonance problem cannot be resolved in Shengting's scheme. The venue walls use large-span light steel keel structures without any low-frequency vibration damping. This will cause severe low-frequency resonance during use. The entire wall will vibrate, producing enormous noise. Not only will this affect the listening experience inside the venue, it will also cause noise pollution to surrounding buildings and completely fail to meet environmental protection standards. I switched to the last slide, which summarized the 3 defects and the corresponding national standards. Each of the 3 defects is fatal and would, once the venue is built, make it impossible to meet the usage requirements and could even cause serious safety incidents. Therefore, I believe Shengting Group's preliminary proposal completely fails to meet the bidding requirements for this project and should be judged unqualified and disqualified from the bid. After speaking, I put down the microphone and sat back in my seat. The hall fell silent. A few seconds later, louder and more intense murmurs broke out. The head of the expert review panel picked up the microphone, looked at the people from Shengting Group, and his face was serious. The representatives of Shengting Group, do you have any explanation for the 3 issues raised by designer Lin? Zhu Ming stood on the stage, his face pale, trembling all over, unable to utter a word. He didn't understand acoustic design at all. His earlier presentation had been nothing more than reading from the PPT. He couldn't even comprehend the questions I raised, let alone explain them. Shun Yu abruptly stood up and addressed the panel head, his tone panicked. Experts, this is a misunderstanding. Our proposal has been validated by a professional team. It can't have these problems. It's Lin Zhon. She's deliberately targeting us, maliciously smearing us. The panel head looked at Shun Yu, his tone icy. Mr. Shun, whether this is malicious smearing or not, our expert panel will recheck it on site. All acoustic simulation data can be verified by professional software. Whether there truly are problems will be clear once we calculate. After speaking, the head turned to the experts behind him. Everyone recheck Shengting Group's proposal on site now. Use professional software to run acoustic simulations and verify whether designer Lin's issues are correct. Several experts immediately took out their laptops and began on-site computations and rechecks. The bidding hall was so quiet you could hear keys being tapped. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the expert panel screens. Half an hour later, the panel head looked up, his face ashen, and addressed Shun Yu with deep disappointment and anger in his voice. After our panel's on-site recheck and calculations, all 3 issues raised by designer Lin are confirmed. Shengting Group's proposal has 3 fatal defects in its acoustic design. It completely fails to meet the technical requirements of this project. Our panel unanimously decides to mark Shengting Group's preliminary proposal as unqualified. The hall erupted instantly. Flashbulbs popped non-stop as journalists went wild, photographing Shun Yu. Shun Yu stood there, pale, swaying, almost collapsing. The head continued, looking at him. We will give Shengting Group 3 days. Within 3 days you must submit a revised plan for re-evaluation. If the revised plan still fails to meet requirements, we will directly disqualify Shengting Group from the bidding. Having said that, the head glanced at me, his tone appreciative. Thanks to designer Lin's professional corrections, a major project accident was prevented. Next, may the representative from Hua Construction Group explain your preliminary proposal. I stood up, took the microphone, and walked onto the stage. From the stage I could clearly see Shun Yu sitting below. His gaze was full of malice and rage, fixed on me as if he wanted to tear me apart. I ignored him and began to explain Hua Construction's preliminary plan. For the next half hour I detailed the acoustic design portion of Hua Construction's proposal, every detail, every datum, perfectly compliant with national standards and even exceeding them. The experts below nodded one by one, their expressions full of appreciation and approval. When my explanation ended, thunderous applause broke out from the seats and lasted a long time. The pre-qualification ended and I exited the bidding hall with the Hua Construction team. Just as we reached the door, Shun Yu blocked our path with some people. He came up to me, stared hard, teeth gritted, and spoke word by word. Lin Zhon, don't be shameless. Do you really think that because you're with Hua Construction you can beat me? I looked at him, smiled slightly and replied calmly, Mr. Shun, instead of spouting Tough talk here, you do better to go back and think about how to fix your plan. 3 days isn't long. Oh right, I forgot to tell you. That part of the design you used in your proposal was my unpublished draft. You used it without my permission, which already constitutes infringement. I've engaged a lawyer and sent you a legal notice. Shinyu's face immediately flushed a liver-red color. He raised his hand as if to strike me. Jiangyi stepped forward and stood between us, looking at Shinyu with cold eyes. President Shin, it's not very appropriate to hit someone in public, is it? If you've got the guts, let's settle it in the bidding arena. Shinyu's hand hung in the air. He looked at Jiangyi, then at me, and finally slammed his hand down, gritting his teeth. Fine, very fine, Lin Zhon. Jiangyi, just you wait, I won't let this go. With that he stormed off with his people, watching his retreating back. Xiao Chen sidled up to me and whispered, President Lin, you were amazing when you pointed out the flaws in his proposal just now. His face went green. It was so satisfying. I smiled but said nothing. That was only the first slap in the face. Shinyu, you still owe me a lot. From now on, I'll uncover all your hidden cards one by one. We'll see at the rectification review 3 days from now. Coming out of the bid opening hall, Jiangyi looked at me and smiled. President Lin, we owe you today. Not only did you humiliate Shinyu, but you also helped Huajian earn plenty of brownie points with the expert panel. I smiled and said, President Jiang, you're too polite. It's what I should do. After all, we're partners now. I'll host dinner tonight to celebrate. Jiangyi said, consider it a toast to our resounding victory. I shook my head. No need for a celebration, President Jiang. There are more important things to do right now. Shinyu only has 3 days to revise the plan. He'll do everything he can to get our technical details. We must ensure strict confidentiality. Also, I need to continue investigating the truth behind the accident and obtain ironclad evidence of the crimes committed by Shinyu and Su Luoluo. Jiangyi nodded and looked at me. Alright, if you need my help with anything, just say the word. I still have some connections in this city. Thank you, President Jiang. If I need anything, I'll speak up. After parting ways with Jiangyi, I went straight to the accident site with Xiao Chen. The preliminary construction site for the Jianghai project, located by the river, had been shut down because of the accident. Security guards, employees of Shengting Group, were stationed at the entrance and wouldn't let outsiders in. I called Lawyer Wang and asked him to bring a court investigation order. Half an hour later, Lawyer Wang arrived with the order. The guards, having seen the document, didn't dare refuse and had to let us in. The accident occurred in the auditorium seating area of the Grand Theatre. A large section of scaffolding had collapsed and bloodstains from the incident still marked the ground. I walked over to the scaffolding, crouched down and looked carefully. The steel pipes of the scaffolding still bore marks where screws had been turned. Xiao Chen held a camera and kept taking photos of the marks as evidence. Lawyer Wang came to my side and spoke. Director Lin, even if we now find marks showing the screws were turned, we still can't prove it was Su Luoluo after all. The scene has already been tampered with. Shengting's people definitely cleaned up all the fingerprint evidence. I nodded, stood up and looked toward the nearby electrical room. Where is the monitoring room for the site? It's in that temporary modular room over there. Lawyer Wang pointed to a row of modular rooms not far away. Come on, let's go take a look. We walked to the door of the monitoring room. It was locked and there was no one inside. Lawyer Wang called the project supervising party, and half an hour later their person in charge hurried over and opened the monitoring room door. Inside were several DVRs, the screens dark. I looked at the supervising party's head and spoke. Are there any surveillance recordings from before and after the accident left? The person in charge looked troubled and glanced at me. Designer Lin, it's not that I won't give them to you. The day after the accident, people from Shengting Group came and took all the surveillance hard drives, saying they were taking them for the accident investigation. Moreover, they formatted and deleted all the footage on the monitoring host. We have nothing here. I frowned. Sure enough, Shinyu had destroyed the evidence. Lawyer Wang looked at me, shook his head, his eyes full of helplessness. Mr. Lin, it seems Shengting won't give us any evidence. I said nothing, walked over to the monitoring host, crouched down and looked at the hard drive interfaces. Did they take the hard drives from the host? No, the person in charge said. They only formatted the drives and took the backup hard drives. My eyes lit up and I spoke immediately. Xiao Chen, bring over the computer and data recovery tools we brought. Xiao Chen promptly took the computer and tools out of his backpack and handed them to me. I removed the hard drive from the surveillance host, connected it to the computer, and started running the data recovery software. Lawyer Wang looked at me, puzzled. President Lin, this hard drive has been formatted. Can the data still be recovered? Yes. As I worked, I said, as long as the hard drive hasn't been physically damaged, even if it's been formatted, as long as the data hasn't been repeatedly overwritten, the files can be recovered. Sheng Ting's people only did a simple format, they didn't do thorough data destruction. The files can definitely be recovered. Everyone held their breath, staring at the computer screen. The data recovery progress bar moved forward bit by bit. An hour later, the progress bar reached 100%. The software displayed a dense list of surveillance video files, all deleted, footage from before and after the accident. Everyone cried out in excitement. Great, President Lin, we found it. I took a deep breath and opened the surveillance footage from the day before the accident through the day of the accident. I fast-forwarded through half an hour and finally found the footage I wanted. 1 hour before the accident, the monitor showed Su Luoluo wearing a mask and hat, sneaking into the construction site. She walked to the scaffold where I had my accident, looked around, no one, took out a wrench, crouched down and began loosening the scaffold's fixing screws. The footage clearly showed that she loosened 6 screws in total. After finishing, she put the wrench back into her bag, looked around and slipped away. Immediately after that came the footage of the accident. I climbed the scaffold to retrieve the design drafts placed up there. Just after I climbed up, the scaffold collapsed. I fell with it and lost consciousness. I watched the footage, my fingertips tightening slightly. Conclusive evidence. This was the most direct, ironclad proof that Su Luoluo had deliberately harmed me. Xiao Chen copied all the surveillance footage onto the external hard drive, making several backups. Lawyer Wang watched the footage, trembling with anger. This Su Luoluo is vicious. This is attempted murder. President Lin, we should take this evidence to the police right now and file a report. Let's see how Shun Yu can still pressure anyone this time. I nodded and packed the hard drive. Let's go to the police station. We left the construction site and went straight to the local police station where we found the officers responsible for the accident. I handed the recovered surveillance footage and the earlier recordings to the police. After watching the footage, the officers' expressions turned serious. We didn't expect this accident to be intentional, Ms. Lin. Rest assured, we will file a case and investigate immediately. We'll summon the suspect Su Luoluo at once. I looked at the officer and added, also Sheng Ting Group's chairman Shen Yu, knowing the accident was caused by Su Luoluo, deliberately destroyed evidence and bribed the Safety Supervision Department to classify the accident as an accident. He is suspected of shielding a criminal and obstructing official duties. I hope you will investigate him as well. The officer nodded. Don't worry, we will investigate both. If the evidence is sound, we will not let anyone who breaks the law go unpunished. After leaving the station, Lawyer Wang looked at me, all excited. President Lin, this is great. The case is finally filed. Su Luoluo and Shun Yu can't escape this time. I stared out the car window, feeling little emotion. This was only the first step. I wanted more than prison for them. I wanted their reputations ruined, and everything they owed me and my father returned in full. At that moment my phone rang. It was the relative of the attending physician who had examined Su Luoluo's ear back then. Ms. Lin, I found the medical records and diary my father kept from that time which you asked me to look for. They do record Su Luoluo's ear injury, the same as you said it wasn't from trying to save someone else. She injured herself playing with firecrackers. My father is now retired in our hometown. If you want to talk to him to learn more, I can send you the address. I held the phone, my eyes lighting up. Thank you so much. Please send me the address, I'll go there right now. After hanging up, I looked at Lawyer Wang and spoke. Lawyer Wang, go back to the firm and keep an eye on the situation at the police station. I'm going to the neighboring city to find the attending doctor from back then and get ironclad proof that Su Luoluo was lying. Okay. President Lin, take care, call me anytime if anything comes up. I nodded and said to Xiao Chen, drive to the neighboring city. The car got on the highway and headed for the neighboring city. Shen Yu, you've protected Su Luoluo for over a decade because of that life-saving favor. When I get the evidence and expose this scam, I want to see how you'll react. Will you collapse? Will you regret it? I returned from the neighboring city the next day at noon. I successfully found Dr. Li, the attending physician from back then, and obtained his handwritten medical records, his work diary from that time, and his sworn testimony, all recorded on video. All the evidence proves that Su Luoluo's ear injury back then wasn't from saving Shenyu at all. She was playing with firecrackers, stuffing one into a tree hollow, and blew her own ear. Her parents taught her to lie and say she was hurt saving Shenyu to extort money from the Shen family. More importantly, Dr. Li told me that Su Luoluo's ear was fully healed by surgery 10 years ago. Her hearing is exactly like a normal person's with no impairment. For all these years she has been pretending to have poor hearing just to manipulate Shenyu, to make him feel guilty and indulge her without bounds. I organized all the evidence and made several backups. Xiao Chen looked at me excited. President Lin, this is great. If we send this evidence to Shenyu, he'll definitely turn against Su Luoluo. He's been protecting his decades-long crush who actually deceived him for years. He'll be devastated. I shook my head and put the evidence away. Now is not the time. This evidence must be revealed at the most critical moment to have the greatest effect. I looked at Xiao Chen and spoke. Send out the notice for tomorrow's National Acoustic Engineering Industry Summit. My speech will be adjusted. In addition to releasing the new patented technology, I will add a segment about the widespread plagiarism in the industry and the concrete evidence that Shengtian Group stole my design. Xiao Chen froze for a moment, then recovered and his eyes lit up. President Lin, you mean expose Shenyu's plagiarism in front of the whole industry and cut off his technical lifeline? I nodded. Yes, Shenyu thinks he can silence me, but he doesn't know that in this industry my voice carries far more weight than his. I will make the entire industry know that his Shengting Group is nothing but a thief who copies. I'll make the whole acoustics field refuse to work with him. I will blacklist him in reverse. The next day, the National Acoustic Engineering Industry Summit was held at the International Convention and Exhibition Center. This was the highest-profile summit in the domestic acoustics industry, with thousands of experts, designers, company heads, and many journalists in attendance. I was a special guest at the summit, scheduled to speak third. The venue was packed. I sat in the guest section, surrounded by titans of the industry. Across from me, on the opposing guest bench, sat Shenyu. He had come with Shengting Group's technical team, and Zhu Ming beside him. He looked at me with a mean glint in his eyes and a hint of contempt. Clearly he believed that no matter how good I was, I couldn't do anything to him in front of the whole industry. The summit began officially. After the first two speakers finished, the host took the stage, microphone in hand, smiling as he started. Next, please give a warm round of applause to invite to the stage Ms. Lin Zhon, the country's top acoustic engineering chief designer, a national first-class registered acoustic engineer, known in the industry as the acoustic tuner. Thunderous applause filled the hall. I stood, straightened my suit, took the microphone and walked onto the stage. Standing there facing thousands of eyes, I inhaled deeply and spoke. Seniors, colleagues, hello, I'm Lin Zhon. Today my presentation is titled Research and Application of a New Generation Full-Space Zero-Defect Acoustic System. For the next 40 minutes I explained in detail the core technologies, patent achievements, and real-world applications of my newly developed next-generation full-space zero-defect acoustic system. This technology was a full generation ahead of what is commonly used in the industry and solved many long-standing problems. The experts and peers in the audience sat up straight, their faces showing shock and admiration, punctuated by sporadic, enthusiastic applause. Shenyu across from me grew progressively sullen. He finally realized the technology one held was far more powerful than he had imagined. What he'd obtained earlier was just an outdated solution I had discarded. At the end of my talk, I shifted tone and looked at everyone in the audience. Having finished the technical part, I want to talk about a current disorder in our industry, design plagiarism. The room fell silent instantly, all eyes on me. I raised my hand and Xiao Chen switched on the projector. Two comparative design drawings appeared on the screen. One was my unpublished acoustic design draft for the Jianghai project from last year, with a clear timestamp and my signature. The other was the acoustic design drawing submitted by Shengting Group in this Jianghai project's pre-qualification materials. The two drawings were identical down to the placement of annotations, not a millimeter different. There was an uproar. I held the microphone and my voice carried clearly throughout the venue. What you are seeing now is a comparison between the design scheme Shengting Cultural Tourism Group submitted for the Jianghai project bid and my unpublished design draft. Shengting Group, without any authorization from me, privately stole my design results for commercial bidding. This constitutes serious infringement and academic misconduct. I paused, switched to the next slide, which displayed our chat log. In the messages, Shenyu himself wrote that the acoustic design for the Jianghai project relied entirely on me, that without my design he couldn't have obtained the project. There were also chat records between Zhu Ming and Su Luoluo, which clearly showed that Su Luoluo had stolen my design drafts from my studio and handed them to Shenyu. These pieces of evidence all prove that Shengting Group's proposal completely copied my design results. Not only that, but Shengting Group's chairman Shenyu, in order to cover up Su Luoluo's theft of my designs, deliberately destroyed the evidence that she had intentionally harmed me, attempting to hide her criminal actions. I looked at the audience and spoke word by word. I am revealing these matters here today not to vent personal grievances, but to tell everyone that our industry relies on real skill and solid technical development, not on stealing, grabbing, or plagiarism. I hereby formally announce that I have filed a lawsuit against Shengting Group for their infringement, demanding that Shengting Group publicly apologize and compensate for all losses. At the same time, all my patented technologies are permanently forbidden from being used by Shengting Group and any companies that cooperate with Shengting Group. The moment I finished speaking, the hall erupted in thunderous applause that lasted for a very long time. Peers in the audience one after another gave me thumbs up. Well said, President Lin, we support you. Plagiarism should be resisted. Shengting Group has gone too far. I looked toward the guest seats opposite. Shenyu sat there, his face pale, trembling all over, nearly dropping the cup in his hand. The members of his technical team beside him kept their heads down, not daring to meet anyone's gaze. Under the scrutiny of the whole industry, Shenyu couldn't sit still any longer. He suddenly stood up, took people with him, and stormed out of the conference in a rage. Utterly humiliated after the speech, I stepped down from the stage and was immediately surrounded by a group of company leaders. President Lin, hello, we make acoustic materials and would like to discuss cooperation with you. President Lin, we have a national-level venue project and would like to invite you to be the chief acoustics designer. President Lin, we're willing to offer the highest industry salary. Please join our company. I smiled and responded to them one by one, exchanging contact information. Companies that had previously been afraid to work with me because of Shenyu's ban were now scrambling to collaborate. Meanwhile, Shengting Group's PR phones had been overwhelmed with calls. Acoustic suppliers who had worked with Shengting Group all sent termination letters, ending all cooperation. No one in the acoustics industry dared to work with Shengting Group anymore. With one speech, I completely cut off Shenyu's technical lifeline and executed a counter-boycott against him. Sitting in the car, Xiao Chen looked at me with tears of excitement in his eyes. President Lin, you're amazing, we finally turned things around. Shenyu is now a rat in the street, everyone's after him. I smiled and checked a message from lawyer Wang on my phone. The police station had officially summoned Su Luoluo and opened a case to investigate her for suspected intentional injury. Shenyu's good days were over. I leaned back in the seat and looked out the car window. Shenyu, did you really think you could cover the sky with one hand? You were too naive. What you owe me, I will take back piece by piece. Everything. Next, it will be your commercial empire. I will dismantle it, bit by bit, completely. The day after the industry summit, Shengting Group's stock plunged to the daily limit. As soon as the market opened, the internet was full of news about Shengting Group plagiarizing designs, and netizens dug up that several of Shengting Group's previous cultural tourism projects had serious quality problems, cutting corners and false advertising. Shenyu was in a panic, having to deal with the police summons, handling the company's stock crisis, and fixing the Jianghai project's plan to pass review within 3 days. I was in the conference room of Huajian Group, leading the team to refine the final bidding proposal. Jiangyi looked at me and smiled. Ms. Lin, your speech completely stunned Shenyu. Right now, things inside Shengting Group are a total mess. Many senior executives are selling off their shares and preparing to flee. I smiled. This is just the beginning. Shenyu didn't get where he is just by copying others. There are a lot of dirty tricks. Shengting Group may look shiny on the outside, but it's rotten through and through. At that moment my phone rang, an unfamiliar Number, I answered. On the other end was a man's voice, low and tense. May I speak to Ms. Lin Zhon? This is she. Who is this? I was the former CFO of Shengting Group. My name is Zhong Cheng. I have complete evidence of Shengting's financial fraud and of Shunyu embezzling project funds. I know you have a grudge against Shunyu. I want to hand this evidence over to you. I paused, then responded. Why are you helping me? Helping you? I'm getting revenge. Zhong Cheng's voice was full of hatred. I worked with Shunyu for 10 years and helped build Shengting. When I discovered he was embezzling funds, he fired me, confiscated all my shares and my year-end bonus, and even blacklisted me in the industry so I couldn't find work. My wife divorced me. My life is ruined, all because of Shunyu. I want him to pay. I took a deep breath. Okay, where do you want to meet? Half an hour from now, the Riverside Park in the Old Town in the pavilion. I'll meet only you, no one else can come. Alright, I'll be there. On time. After hanging up, Jiangyi frowned. Ms. Lin, could this be a trap? Shunyu is desperate, he'd do anything. I shook my head. Probably not. If it were a trap he wouldn't use this method. Besides, even if it is, I'm going. If I can get evidence of Shengting's financial fraud, I can topple Shunyu's whole business empire. Then I'll have my bodyguards go with you, Jiangyi said, to guarantee your safety. No, I shook my head. He said he'll only meet me alone. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll have Xiao Chen drive and follow me, waiting nearby. If anything happens, I'll call her immediately. Jiangyi was still uneasy and finally had 2 plainclothes bodyguards follow me at a distance to ensure my safety. Half an hour later I arrived at the Riverside Park Pavilion. Inside sat a man in a black coat, wearing a hat and a mask, looking haggard. Zhong Cheng. When he saw me come in, he stood up, glanced warily around to make sure no one was nearby, and finally exhaled. Ms. Lin, you're here. I nodded and sat opposite him. The stuff. Zhong Cheng took an encrypted USB from his bag, set it on the table and pushed it toward me. This contains Shengting Group's complete financial records for the past 3 years, and all the evidence of Shunyu embezzling funds, financial fraud, and tax evasion. It includes the diversion of the Jianghai project's contingency funds to buy Su Luoluo a luxury home and expensive goods, and to cover the deficits of Su Luoluo's father's company. Every bank transaction is in there. He looked at me with eyes full of hatred. Shunyu has been cooking the books for years, inflating revenue and profits, duping banks for loans and deceiving investors. Shengting's cash flow has been broken for a long time. It's been kept afloat by robbing Peter to pay Paul. Once you hand this evidence over, Shengting is finished, and so is Shunyu. I picked up the USB and held it in my hand. Why do you trust me so much? Aren't you afraid I'll hand this evidence over to Shunyu in exchange for a payoff? Zhong Cheng smiled, shook his head. No, the whole industry knows you and Shunyu are at each other's throats. You're the only one who can bring Shunyu down. These pieces of evidence are only useful if you have them. He stood up and looked at me. I've already given you the files. I have to go. Shunyu's men have been looking for me. I hope you do as you said and make Shunyu pay the price he deserves. After speaking, he turned and briskly walked out of the pavilion, soon disappearing into the park. I got into the car with the USB drive. Xiao Chen, go back to the studio. Back at the studio, I plugged the USB into the computer and entered the password Zhong Cheng had given me. Inside, sure enough, were Shengting Group's complete financial accounts and all the evidence of Shunyu's illegal and improper activities, itemized, clear, irrefutable. Just the embezzlement from the Jianghai project's reserve funds amounted to a full 800 million yuan, 500 million transferred to Su Luoluo's father to cover losses in his company, and the remaining 300 million used to buy Su Luoluo luxury homes, cars, and jewelry. There was also evidence of accounting fraud, almost tens of billions of revenue inflated, and tax evasion exceeding 50 million. I stared at the evidence, my fingers tightening slightly. Shunyu, for the sake of your white moonlight, you'd embezzle project funds, even steal from the state this time. Let's see how you run. I made several backups of all the evidence, one copy to lawyer Wang, one sent to the tax bureau and the securities regulator, and one I kept to release at the most critical moment. The next day was Shengting Group's annual suppliers conference. Shunyu planned to placate the suppliers at the conference and stabilize them. If all the suppliers demanded payment together, Shengting's cash flow would be completely broken. I looked at the time and place for the suppliers meeting on my phone and smiled. Shunyu, You want to steady the suppliers, I won't let you have your wish. That afternoon, the Shengting Suppliers Conference was held in the banquet hall of a five-star hotel downtown. Hundreds of supplier representatives filled the hall. Shen Yu stood on stage with a microphone, giving an impassioned speech, promising that once they won the Jiangkai project they would settle all outstanding payments and offer more cooperation opportunities. At that moment, everyone's phones in the banquet hall vibrated simultaneously. Each person received an anonymous text message with a link attached. Inside were all the evidences of Shengting Group's accounting fraud and fund embezzlement. The banquet hall erupted instantly. The suppliers looked at the evidence on their phones, faces turning ashen, and erupted. What, Shengting cooking the books? Their cash flow's been broken for a while. He embezzled 800 million from the Jiangkai project to cover that woman's losses. What about our payments? He's been deceiving us this whole time, saying he'll pay once the project's secured. It's all empty promises. Someone shouted first, Shen Yu, pay us. If you don't pay today, we won't leave. In an instant all the suppliers swarmed him, surrounding Shen Yu and demanding immediate payment or they would stop supplying and sue Shengting Group. The scene was chaotic. Shen Yu stood in the crowd, pale and trembling, unable to speak. His bodyguards tried to get him out, but there were too many suppliers, they couldn't break through. That afternoon, Shengting Group's stock price hit the daily down limit again. Locked at the limit with no chance to sell, multiple banks simultaneously sent demand letters requiring Shengting Group to repay all loans early, or they would apply to the court for asset preservation and freeze all Shengting's assets. The Tax Bureau and the China Securities Regulatory Commission simultaneously issued announcements, launching an investigation into Shengting Group for suspected tax evasion and financial fraud. Shengting Group's cash flow was completely severed and it was pushed to the brink of bankruptcy. That evening I was in the studio working with the team to refine the proposal. Suddenly there was a loud bang downstairs, followed by the sound of breaking glass and Xiao Chen's scream. I jumped up and ran downstairs. On the first floor, I saw the studio's glass door smashed to pieces. Several men wearing masks, holding iron rods, were smashing things inside the studio, computers, equipment, all wrecked. Xiao Chen had been pushed to the ground, her arm was cut deeply by glass and bleeding heavily. I immediately took out my phone and called the police. When those men saw me, they charged at me with the iron rods. Just then, the two bodyguards Jiangyi had sent to protect me rushed in and subdued the men in a few moves, pinning them to the ground. The police arrived quickly and took all those men away. I helped Xiao Chen up and looked at the wound on her arm, my heart aching. Xiao Chen, I'm sorry, I dragged you into this. Xiao Chen shook her head and cried, President Lin, I'm fine. It must be Shen Yu, he's crazy. He actually sent people to smash our studio. I looked at the wrecked studio, my fingertips tightening slightly, my gaze cold. Shen Yu, you really did get desperate. You think using such despicable methods will scare me? You're too naive. The more you act like this, the more you prove you're afraid. Rest assured, I'll make you pay a far heavier price. The police called me and said those men had confessed. They were hired by Shen Yu's aide Zhu Ming, who paid them to smash my studio to intimidate me and ideally destroy the proposals and evidence in my possession. I handed the recorded call and the on-site surveillance footage to the police. Zhu Ming was suspected of intentional property damage and hiring thugs to injure people. The police opened a case and placed him under criminal detention. Shen Yu's right-hand men were also taken in. Now he's utterly alone. I looked out at the night and a cold smile tugged at my lips. Shen Yu, the game is almost over. Next comes the final bidding. I will be there to deliver your last, grand gift, to make you lose utterly and be utterly crushed. There was 1 week left until the final bidding for the Jiangkai project. Shengting Group had already been pushed to the edge of the cliff. Banks had frozen all their assets. Investigations by the CSRC and the Tax Bureau were deepening. Suppliers were camping outside the company every day demanding payment. Executives were resigning en masse. The stock had hit consecutive limit downs and was on the verge of delisting. Shen Yu was in a panic, scrambling to handle various investigations while also revising the proposal for the final bid. As for me, I had finished optimizing Huajian's final bidding proposal. Every data point was perfected to the extreme. That afternoon, Lawyer Wang came to my studio and placed a stack of documents in front of me. President Lin, The police have sorted out Su Luoluo's case. The evidence is conclusive and has been transferred to the Procuratorate for prosecution. Su Luoluo's side has found a lawyer and wants to negotiate a settlement with you. They say they are willing to compensate you and ask you to issue a letter of forgiveness to reduce her sentence. I smiled and shook my head. Reconcile impossible. She nearly killed me. There's no way I can reconcile with her. Tell her lawyer that if they want me to produce a letter of forgiveness, it'll be only if she's dead. Lawyer Wang nodded. All right, I understand. Also, the police have already filed a case against Shunyu for harboring a criminal. He'll be summoned soon. Besides, I found something about your father's Lin Construction Group's bankruptcy back then. My heart plunged. My father's Lin Construction Group used to be a top domestic infrastructure company and the predecessor of the Jianghai project, the contractor for the Jianghai Grand Theatre 10 years ago. It suddenly came to light that there was financial fraud, unpaid project payments, banks withdrawing loans, the cash flow broke down, and it went into bankruptcy liquidation. My father couldn't bear the blow and died in a car accident. I was only in my teens then. Overnight, my family was ruined. All these years I'd suspected there was something fishy about my father's company's collapse, but I had never had proof. I looked at Lawyer Wang, my voice trembling. What did you find out about my father's case? Lawyer Wang looked at me and spoke. The report accusing your father of financial fraud back then came from an anonymous account. I traced that account and found its actual controller was Su Luoluo's father, Su Hongyuan. Also, your father's company's financial director at the time was Shenyu's uncle. He fabricated the accounts and framed your father. And the bank that withdrew loans from your father's company was run by someone arranged by Shenyu's father. My head rang and went blank. So my father's company's bankruptcy wasn't an accident at all. It was a conspiracy orchestrated by Shenyu and Su Luoluo's father. They teamed up to steal the Jianghai Grand Theatre project and framed my father, which led to my family's ruin. Lawyer Wang continued. Also, the police concluded your father's car accident was an accident, a brake failure, but I found that the day before the crash, your father's car was sent to a repair shop for maintenance. And the owner of that shop is a relative of Su Hongyuan. I suspect your father's crash wasn't an accident. They deliberately tampered with the car to silence him. I clenched my fist so hard my nails dug into my palm and started to draw blood. So that's how it was. So Shinyu got close to me, dated me, got engaged to me. From the very start it wasn't because he loved me. He wanted the Jianghai project files my father left behind. He wanted my acoustic design talent to help him win the project. From the beginning he had been using me. He is the murderer of my father. I took a deep breath, forcing down the overwhelming hatred inside me, and looked at Lawyer Wang. Lawyer Wang, please continue the investigation. I want all the evidence. I want them to pay blood for blood. Lawyer Wang nodded. Don't worry, Ms. Lin, I will find out the truth. After he left, I sat in the office and stared out the window. For a long time, 10 years ago, my family was destroyed overnight, falling from the clouds into hell. 10 years later, I had dated my father's killer for 3 years and almost married him. How laughable. Shenyu, Su Luoluo, Su Hongyuan, what you owe me, what you owe my father, I will take back bit by bit. Principal and interest. I took out my phone and opened all the evidence I had previously gotten from Dr. Lee proving that Su Luoluo's life-saving favor was a fraud. I smiled and anonymously sent those documents to Shenyu's private email. Shenyu, you're already in deep trouble. I'll pour a little more fuel on the fire. I wanted to see how you'd react when you realized the white moonlight you've worshipped for over a decade had been deceiving you all this time. The next morning my phone exploded with calls. It exploded online that Shenyu and Su Luoluo had completely fallen out. They had a huge fight in the hospital, and Shenyu threw out everything Su Luoluo had given him, even saying he would never care about her life again. Clearly, Shenyu had seen the evidence I sent him and learned the truth. Xiao Chen looked at me, his face full of excitement. President Lin, that's great. Shenyu and Su Luoluo have finally broken up. He must be collapsing now. The person he's protected for over a decade actually deceived him for years. I smiled but said nothing. This was only the appetizer. The real feast would be at the final bidding. I would be there and reveal all the truths to the public. I would let Shenyu be ruined and fall into irredeemable disgrace. Just then my phone rang. It was Shenyu. I answered. On the other end was Shenyu's voice, hoarse and unrecognizable, filled with deep exhaustion and hatred. Lin Zhon, those pieces of evidence, you sent them to me, didn't you? I smiled and spoke. It was me. So, Mr. Shen, does knowing the truth feel bad? The white moonlight you've protected for over a decade lied to you for years and treated you like a fool. How do you feel now? Shen Yu's voice was full of gnashing, bitter hatred. Lin Zhon, you're so cruel. You've been scheming against me from the start, haven't you? Scheming against you. I laughed. Shen Yu, compared to you, what kind of scheming is mine? You and Su Hongyuan teamed up to frame my father, causing my family's ruin and my father's tragic death. You approached me, dated me, got engaged to me, all from the beginning. You were scheming. Tell me, who was really scheming whom? Silence fell instantly on the other end. After a long while his voice trembled with a bit of panic. You knew everything. Yes, I said each word clearly. I know it all. Shen Yu, what you owe me and what you owe my father, I'll take it all back at the final bidding. Wait for it, I will make you lose utterly beyond redemption. After saying that, I hung up and blocked his number. Shen Yu, the game is almost over. The bidding in a week will be your end. I'm waiting to watch you be disgraced and thrown into prison. The final bidding day for the Jianghai Cultural and Arts Center project had finally arrived. The bidding took place in the grand auditorium of the municipal government's conference center. The entire event was streamed online. Major city leaders, the project's client representatives, and the nation's top infrastructure and acoustics experts formed the judging panel. Many journalists had come to the venue and there were already millions of viewers in the live stream. The hype maxed out. I sat at the Huajian team's table wearing a black suit, makeup immaculate, expression resolute. Beside me were Jiang Yi and the entire Huajian bidding team. Everyone was full of confidence. Across from us sat Shen Yu. A few days apart seemed to have aged him by a decade, half his hair gone white, bloodshot eyes, a haggard face, his suit wrinkled, none of his former swagger left. Only 2 technicians were with him, lonely and small in number, no longer surrounded by the former entourage. He looked at me with nothing but rancor, hatred, and a hint of despair in his eyes. I looked without seeing, lowering my head to flip through the final proposal in my hands. At 9 in the morning, the bidding officially began. The host walked onto the stage and read out the bidding rules and procedures. Following the draw order, Shengting Group was first to go on stage to present the final proposal. Shen Yu took a deep breath, holding the proposal, stood up and walked onto the stage. He stood there looking at everyone in the audience and the live stream camera, his voice hoarse as he began to explain Shengting's final proposal. His proposal fixed the previous acoustic flaws, but it still used the industry's most outdated technology with no highlights at all. The operations plan was all empty promises, with no substantive content. The judges in the audience frowned one by one and shook their heads from time to time, clearly very dissatisfied with his proposal. Online viewers in the livestream were all roasting it too. What is this thing with this proposal? They actually dare to bid on a 12 billion project. They plagiarized Mr. Lin's design before, got sued by him, so they don't dare copy anymore, and now they bring out this garbage. Has Shen Yu just given up? Shengting is almost bankrupt. Even if they get the project, they can't possibly deliver. 40 minutes later, Shen Yu finished presenting his proposal. A few scattered, awkward claps came from the audience. The head of the review panel looked at Shen Yu with a serious expression. We have reviewed Shengting Group's proposal. Next, we will score it. Now, may we invite the next bidder, Huajian Group, to present their proposal. The room instantly erupted in warm applause. I stood, straightened my suit, took the microphone and walked onto the stage. Standing there, looking at the leaders, experts, and countless cameras below, I took a deep breath and began. Leaders, experts, the owner's representatives, good afternoon. I am Lin Zhon, the Chief Acoustic Designer for Huajian Group's Jianghai Cultural and Arts Center project. I will now present Huajian Group's final design proposal for this project. Over the next hour I explained Huajian's plan in detail, from the overall master planning and cultural tourism operation strategy to the core acoustic system design. Every detail explained clearly, especially the acoustic system section. I presented a next-generation, full-space, zero-defect acoustic system. Its metrics not only perfectly met the tender requirements but exceeded national standards by 30% and even reached world-class levels. The experts in the audience brightened one by one, nodding repeatedly, their faces full of appreciation and approval. The live stream exploded. Wow, this is insane. This tech totally obliterates Shengting's proposal. Mr. Lin is amazing, no wonder he's the acoustic authority. This proposal is practically perfect. Compared to Shengting's trash, Huajian's is a different league. When the presentation ended, I looked at everyone in the room and shifted my tone. The presentation is over. Next, there are a few things I need to make clear to everyone here. The room went silent, every eye was on me. The live stream viewership instantly surpassed 100 million. I lifted my hand and Xiao Chen turned on the projector. On the screen appeared surveillance footage of Su Luoluo at the accident site loosening the scaffold bolts. The first matter, the collapse accident during the early construction of the Jiangkai project was not an accident but deliberate harm. The person in this video is Su Luoluo Shunyu, chairman of Shengting Group's childhood friend. She deliberately loosened the scaffolds fixing bolts, causing me to fall from the scaffold, suffer severe injuries, and nearly die. Shunyu knew the accident was caused by Su Luoluo but deliberately destroyed evidence and bribed the Safety Supervision Department to classify the incident as an accident suspected of obstruction of justice. The police have already opened an investigation. The audience erupted, and the live stream went ballistic. I switched to the next slide, a comparison showing Shengting Group's plagiarism of my design along with the chat logs as evidence. The second matter, Shengting Group submitted a preliminary proposal in this bid that completely plagiarized my personal design results. They did so without any authorization from me, which already constitutes serious infringement. I have filed a lawsuit in court. Immediately after, I released all the evidence of Shengting Group's financial fraud, misappropriation of project funds, and tax evasion item by item, clear as day. The third matter, Shengting Group is suspected of severe financial fraud and tax evasion, and of misappropriating 800 million yuan from the Jiangkai project reserve to cover the losses of Su Luoluo's father's company, as well as using funds to buy luxury goods for Su Luoluo. The Tax Bureau and the Securities Regulatory Commission have already opened investigations into Shengting Group. Its capital chain has completely collapsed and it is utterly incapable of taking on this 12 billion project. The leaders and experts in the audience all went pale, looking at Shunyu with faces of anger and disappointment. Shunyu sat in the audience trembling, his face deathly white, unable to utter a single word. I looked at him and, enunciating each word, my voice carried clearly through the entire auditorium and through the live stream. Next, I will speak about the fourth matter, which is also the most critical. I paused and switched the PPT, which displayed all the evidence from 10 years ago of Lin Construction Group's bankruptcy along with the complete chain of evidence showing Shunyu and Su Hongyuan colluding to frame my father. 10 years ago my father, Lin Zhenghong, was the chairman of Lin Construction Group and the contractor for the predecessor of this Jiangkai project, the Jiangkai Grand Theatre project. Shunyu's father and Su Luoluo's father, Su Hongyuan, colluded to fabricate accounts and frame my father in order to seize this project, which led to Lin Construction Group's bankruptcy and liquidation. My father couldn't withstand the blow. He had an accident and died. That so-called accident was not an accident at all. Su Hongyuan tampered with it to silence him. The room fell deathly silent. Not even the sound of breathing could be heard. The live stream comments froze for a moment, then erupted a few seconds later. No way. This is outrageous. Shunyu is the son of the man who killed Lin's father. Oh my god, what a bombshell. Shunyu is monstrous. No wonder Lin won't let it go. This is a blood feud you can't bury. I looked at Shunyu in the audience, my gaze ice cold, and spoke one word at a time. Shunyu, you got close to me, dated me, and got engaged to me not because you loved me from the start. You were after the project materials my father left behind and my acoustic design talent to help you win this project. From the very beginning, you were calculating me. Did you think I really knew nothing? Shunyu sprang to his feet, staring at me with a look of despair and madness, shouting hoarsely, "No, Lin Zhon, it's not like that. I really did love you later. I really did." I laughed, looking at him with nothing but mockery in my tone. Love me, Shunyu? How dare you say you loved me? You were talking marriage to me while protecting the daughter of the man who killed my father, while helping her cover up a crime that almost killed me. Your so-called love was using me, scheming against me, treating me like a fool. At that moment, the auditorium doors were pushed open. Several officials in disciplinary commission uniforms walked in, went straight to Shunyu and produced an investigation notice and handcuffs. Shunyu, We are from the Municipal Disciplinary Commission. You are suspected of bribery, colluding in bidding, and shielding an organization of a mafia nature. We are detaining you for investigation according to law. Please come with us." With a click, the handcuffs snapped onto Shenyu's wrists. He went limp, ashen-faced, and was escorted out of the auditorium by the officials. Thunderous applause erupted and lasted for a very long time. I stood on the stage, took a deep breath, and bowed to everyone in the audience. "My presentation is concluded. Thank you, everyone." That afternoon, the bid results were officially announced. Huajian Group won the Jianghai Cultural and Arts Center project by an absolute margin. As the project's chief acoustic designer, I held full responsibility for the design and construction of the acoustic systems. The whole internet was cheering for me. Netizens called me the most fierce heroine, saying I not only won the project with my abilities, but also personally put my father's murderer in prison. It felt so satisfying. Stepping out of the Municipal Government Conference Center, Jiangyi looked at me and smiled. "Director Lin, congratulations, a sweeping victory." I watched the sunset on the horizon and smiled. "This is only the first step. My father's wrongful case has not yet been fully cleared. Su Hongyuan and everyone who framed my father back then, I will not spare a single one. What they owe me, what they owe my father, I will take back in full." The day after Shenyu was taken away by the Discipline Inspection Commission, Shengting Group issued an announcement declaring bankruptcy and liquidation. This once immensely glamorous cultural tourism real estate giant collapsed overnight. The internet was full of news about Shengting Group's bankruptcy, and netizens applauded, saying Shenyu got what he deserved, and I was cooperating with the police, investigating the truth behind my father's car accident years ago. Lawyer Wang found the owner of the repair shop from back then, who is also a relative of Su Hongyuan. He has already fled in fear of prosecution. The police have issued a manhunt and are searching for him nationwide. At that moment, news came from the detention center. Shenyu had recanted. Not only did he deny all his crimes, he also fabricated evidence, claiming that I had instructed everything. He said I deliberately framed him to help Huajian secure the project, maliciously smeared Shengting Group, and even that my designs back then were plagiarized. He forged many chat logs and transfer receipts in an attempt to drag me down. What's more, he reported to the Discipline Inspection Commission that I bribed Jiang Yi of Huajian Group to obtain the cooperation opportunity with Huajian, and claimed that Jiang Yi engaged in irregularities in the project's bidding. He wanted to take everyone down with him, trying to implicate both me and Jiang Yi. Xiao Chen looked at me, frantic with worry. "Director Lin, what do we do? Shenyu is a maniac. He's dead and still dragging us down with him. The disciplinary commission has already called Director Jiang and wants to question him." I looked at the forged evidence in my hand, Shenyu's forgeries, and smiled, not the least bit flustered. "Don't worry, the evidence he forged is full of holes. It won't stand up to investigation. I always suspected he'd get desperate and pull this stunt." I picked up my phone and called Lawyer Wang. "Lawyer Wang, you've heard about Shenyu forging evidence and falsely accusing and framing me and President Jiang, right?" "Yes, Ms. Lin, I'm handling it. I've already submitted the forensic report on Shenyu's forged evidence and all the proof of his false accusations to the Discipline Inspection Commission and the police. This move of his won't overturn anything. It will add an extra charge of false accusation and framing. His sentence will be heavier." "Good. Also about the investigation I asked you to carry out into my father's car accident, any progress?" "There's major progress." Lawyer Wang's voice trembled with excitement. "We found the owner of the repair shop from back then. He was caught at the border by the police and has confessed. He admitted that Su Hongyuan gave him 500,000 yuan at the time to tamper with your father's car, cutting the brake line, which caused the accident. He also confessed that Shenyu knew about this from the start. Shenyu helped Su Hongyuan by transferring the money and covering up the evidence so he could flee." My mind went numb. A third huge reversal. So my father's car accident back then, Shenyu not only knew about it, he was involved. He wasn't just an accomplice, he was one of the masterminds. I tightened my grip on the phone, my fingers clenching slightly, my gaze turning icy. "Shenyu, you're far more vicious than I imagined. You were only 20 then and capable of arranging a murder to silence someone. You truly deserve to die." "I understand, Lawyer Wang. Please hand all that evidence over to the police and the Discipline Inspection Commission. I want Shin Yu thrown in prison and made to rot. Don't worry Ms. Lin, I'll handle it right away. After hanging up I stared out the window. Shin Yu, you wanted a scorched earth fight. I refused to let you get your wish. You will only die more miserably. Just then my phone rang again. It was the airport police station. Is this Ms. Lin Zhon? This is the airport police. We caught Su Luoluo's mother and Su Hongyuan at the terminal. They were preparing to flee the country. They had taken all of Shin Yu's remaining funds and were trying to escape abroad, but we stopped them. Su Hongyuan has confessed. He says he framed your father and caused the car accident that killed him, and is willing to testify against Shin Yu. I took a deep breath and nodded. All right, thank you, I'll be there now. I hung up and, with lawyer Wang, rushed to the airport police station. In the interrogation room, Su Hongyuan sat in a chair, his hair streaked with grey, his face haggard. Gone was the swagger of years past. When he saw me enter, he lifted his head, eyes full of guilt and fear. Ms. Lin, I'm sorry. Back then I was possessed by my own greed. I wronged your father. I wronged you. I'm willing to confess everything and testify against Shin Yu. Please, show me leniency. I looked at him, my tone icy. Tell everything from start to finish in detail. Su Hongyuan nodded and then described everything that had happened 10 years ago. He and Shin Yu's father conspired to seize the Jiangkai Grand Theatre project, but my father's Lin construction group was too strong. They couldn't win. So they hatched a scheme. They had Shin Yu's uncle, who was the finance director at Lin, cook the books and report my father for financial fraud, prompting the bank to call the loans and causing Lin's cash flow to collapse and the company to be liquidated. My father had been investigating the matter and discovered it was their doing. He was preparing to take the evidence to the authorities. Afraid of being exposed, they resorted to murder. Su Hongyuan paid money to the repair shop owner to have the brake lines on my father's car cut, causing a brake failure accident that killed my father, and Shin Yu knew about it the whole time, even took part in planning it. Back then he was only 20, yet he helped his father and Su Hongyuan do so many wicked things. Later, Shin Yu got close to me, dated me, got engaged to me, on the one hand for my design talent to help him win the Jiangkai project, on the other to keep an eye on me, afraid I would uncover the truth from that year, afraid I would seek revenge. When I heard it all, the blood in my body turned cold. So for these 3 years I had been living inside the disguise of my enemies. I almost married the murderer who killed my father. How ridiculous. I looked at Su Hongyuan and spoke each word. Do you have evidence for what you're saying? Yes. I have the chat records between me and Shin Yu's father from back then, bank transfer records, and the transaction showing Shin Yu helped me transfer money to the repair shop owner. I kept everything. I'll hand it all over to you. I'm willing to testify in court and name Shin Yu. I nodded and turned to leave the interrogation room. Lawyer Wang looked at me and said, Ms. Lin, now that the chain of evidence is complete, Shin Yu, as an accomplice to intentional homicide, even if not sentenced to death, will rot in prison. I stared out the window and said nothing. Father, your wrongful case will finally be cleared. None of those who harmed you will get away. They will all receive the punishment they deserve. That afternoon, Su Luoluo was also arrested by the police. She had been released on bail and planned to flee with her father, but was caught at the airport. She knew everything had been exposed and that her father had confessed. She completely collapsed and confessed everything, including how she and Shin Yu framed my father, stole my design drafts and staged the accident to harm me. Everything was confessed clearly, and she handed over all the evidence. With that, the entire chain of evidence was closed. All of Shin Yu's crimes were conclusively proven, with no chance of reversal. His final struggle completely failed. What awaited him was the harshest punishment under the law. 3 months later, the court held a public trial for the cases against Shin Yu, Su Hongyuan, Su Luoluo, and others. Many journalists and citizens concerned about the case attended. The gallery was packed. In court, the prosecution presented all the evidence. Su Hongyuan, Su Luoluo, and the other involved individuals from back then all testified, implicating Shin Yu in every crime. Shin Yu sat in the defendant's chair, his face ashen, unable to utter a word. After 3 days of trial, the court finally announced the verdict. Shin Yu was convicted of intentional homicide, as an accomplice, bribery, harboring criminals, intentional destruction of accounting documents, misappropriation of funds, and false accusation and framing. With multiple sentences combined, he was sentenced to 18 years in prison and fined 50 million yuan. Su Hong Yuan was convicted of intentional homicide, false accusation, and framing, and bribery with multiple sentences combined. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and deprived of political rights for life. Su Luoluo was convicted of intentional injury, false accusation, and framing, and embezzlement, with multiple sentences combined. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison. All the people who had participated in framing my father and staging the car accident back then were sentenced and received the punishment they deserved. The moment the verdict was announced, I was sitting in the gallery. I looked out at the sky, and at last the tears I had been holding back fell. Father, did you see? Those who harmed you have received their just punishment. Your wrongful case has finally been cleared. The court also issued a statement annulling the erroneous judgment against Lin's construction group from back then and restoring my father's reputation. All the property that had been confiscated at the time was returned to me. At last, I had obtained justice for my father. 2 weeks later, the Jianghai Cultural and Arts Center project held its official groundbreaking ceremony. As the project's chief acoustic designer, I spoke at the ceremony, standing on the stage, looking at everyone below and at the construction site by the river. I took a deep breath and began to speak. 10 years ago my father was here preparing to build the Jianghai Grand Theater. 10 years later, I stand here to finish the dream he couldn't complete. I will use all my ability to build the Jianghai Culture and Arts Center into a top domestic and world-class cultural landmark, and not let anyone down. Thunderous applause rose from the audience and lasted for a very long time. The groundbreaking ceremony concluded successfully, and the whole internet was cheering for me, saying I had not only completed my revenge but also fulfilled my father's last wish, becoming a true leading heroine. My studio also received invitations for 3 new national projects, becoming the top design studio in the country's acoustics industry. My life was finally back in my own hands. That day I was in the studio working with my team on a project when lawyer Wang called. Director Lin, the prison called. Shinyu has applied multiple times to see you in person, saying he has something very important to tell you. He asked me to ask if you're willing to meet him. I paused for a moment, then smiled. Meet him? What's the point? He says he knows he was wrong and wants to apologize and repent in person. He also says he has something of your father's to give to you. I was silent for a few seconds, then spoke. All right, I'll see him. The next day I went to the prison with lawyer Wang. In the visiting room separated by thick glass, I saw Shinyu. In just a few months he had completely changed. His hair had gone white, he had wasted away, dressed in prison clothes, his eyes cloudy, none of the former swagger remained. He looked like a haggard middle-aged man. When he saw me enter, he suddenly lifted his head, his eyes brightened, and he pressed himself against the glass, looking at me with trembling lips. Lin Zhon, you finally agreed to see me. I sat in my chair and looked at him calmly without a ripple of emotion. Didn't you say you had something of my father's to give me? What is it? He stared at me, tears falling, his voice choking. Lin Zhon, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Back then I was possessed by my demons. I wronged you. I wronged your father. I regret it. I really regret it. He suddenly knelt down, pressing against the glass, crying as if his heart were being torn apart. Lin Zhon, I beg you, forgive me, please. I know my crimes are grave. I'm not even human. I beg you, help plead for me, help reduce my sentence, please. I don't want to spend my whole life in prison. I'm only in my 30s. I don't want it to end like this. I watched him kneeling on the ground and sobbing, feeling not the slightest stir in my heart. In fact, I found it somewhat laughable when he killed my father and destroyed my family. Back then, didn't he ever imagine this day would come? When he helped Su Luoluo and nearly ended my life, didn't he ever think he'd regret it? When he boasted that the whole industry would blacklist me and that I'd regret it, didn't he ever imagine he'd be on his knees begging for my forgiveness today? I looked at him, smiled, took out my phone and pressed play. From the phone came the words he had said in the hospital back then. You'll regret it. After it finished playing, I put the phone away and looked at him, each word clear as a bell. Shinyu, back then you told me I would regret it. I'm telling you, the one who will regret it is you now. You have achieved that. He knelt there, looking at me with nothing but despair in his eyes. Lin Zhon, I really do know I was wrong. I truly loved you back then, truly. Won't you give me one more chance? Loved me? I smiled. Shinyu, your love is too cheap. I don't deserve it and I don't want it. What you owe me, what you owe my father, cannot be cleared with a single sorry. 18 years in prison is the punishment you deserve. I stood up and looked at him, my gaze icy. You want me to forgive you? Fine, when my father comes back to life, when the lives you ruined for me start over, then I'll forgive you. Oh, by the way, I paused, looked at him and added with a smile, the thing you said you had of my father's to give me, I think this is it, right? I took my father's old diary from my bag and placed it in front of the glass. The diary you stole from my father's office all those years ago, I found it. It contains records of the conspiracies between you and your father and Su Hongyuan. Oh, and the plans you wrote back then about how to scheme against my father and seize the project, I found those too. All of this has been handed over to the police and used as evidence to convict you. Shin Yu's face drained of color in an instant. He slumped to the floor, the light in his eyes completely extinguished. I looked at him and spoke each word. Shin Yu, you're too late asking for my mercy. With that I turned and walked out of the visitation room, never looking back. Behind me came his tearing cries and desperate roars. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. Outside the prison, sunlight warmed my skin. Little Chen ran over, smiled and asked, President Lin, where are we going next? I looked at the sun on the horizon and smiled. Back to the studio, our project still has to continue. The car drove toward the city. I leaned against the seat and watched the scenery pass by outside the window. The grudges of the past had settled to dust. Those who harmed me had received their due punishment. My father's wrongful case had been exonerated, and my life was only just beginning. In the future, I would lead my team to create more and better works, fulfill my father's wishes, and live the life I wanted. My life has never needed to rely on anyone. I am my own light.